Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 42 of the World of Sports podcast. I'm your host, Diego Sandoval, joined, as always, by my co host, Logan Ring. Logan, say what's up to the people.
What's up, everybody?
We've got a good episode for you for episode 42. We're going to kick it off with, uh, I guess it's a shocker. They were the favorites, but just talking about the Lakers, and obviously, if you are in tune with the sports world, you know that they were booted from the playoffs. Suns won the series in 6 games. Um, so we're going to talk about the Lakers and kind of what's next for the Lakers, because I think that's a really big question for them after just a weird season that they had after winning the finals last year. It was just a weird year, honestly, for every team, but the Lakers were really hit hard by it. Um, so we're going to talk a little bit about the Lakers and just what's next. And then we're going to jump to the MLB again. No NFL talk today. It's in its off-season lull. However, in the next month or so, we should start getting more news from OTAs and just more stuff for the NFL to talk about. Because right now there is really nothing. It's just people are working out with their teams. And then we're gonna go to the MLB, and we're gonna talk about we're in June. We're recording this Friday, June 4th. So baseball season's in full swing. And we're gonna talk a little bit about the biggest surprises from the MLB. We each have brought two teams and two players to the table, who have been kind of the biggest surprises in terms of their performances this year. And there's quite a few that teams and players that people never really expected to either do really well or do really poorly, um, but they have. So that should be interesting. That's all we got for today. As always, follow us on our social medias. You can find us on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, the World of Sports Podcast. Just look it up. You should be able to find us. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, give this episode a like, share it with your friends, family, anybody really, and give us a follow. And if you're watching on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe really helps. Yeah, and let's get right into it with the Los Angeles Lakers. Again, the preface: I'm a Lakers fan. Logan is a LeBron fan, so we both kind of had stake in this team going into it. Um, and I'm just gonna come out and say that this series, and I get there were injuries, there were whatever, everything surrounding that whole series, but this was the first time as an NBA fan for me that I have watched LeBron and genuinely question whether he is the best player in the NBA. He
Yeah.
he he just didn't look like himself. And I get that he didn't have much help towards the end of the series, but he just looked so gassed and so over it in game 6.
Yeah, it's really sad. I've been watching LeBron since I was like 5 years old. Been a Cavs fan my entire life. I've loved him. I've hated him. I've loved him again. And now he's my favorite player. Um, and it's okay. He's 36 years old. He's not the greatest player on the planet right now, I don't think anymore. And that's really sad to accept, but it's okay. Um, and we saw in the playoffs this year, I don't know. I think he was a little bit injured, but also he's getting old. Like Father Time is not going to just let him do whatever he wants. Somehow he's had the longest prime of all time, and that's been amazing. But I think people have taken it for granted, and now they're hating on him as soon as he shows any sign of not being the best player on the planet. And I think that shows how great he is. Um, and he put up good stats. Like he put up like 29, 9, and 8 or something. But you could just see, like watching him the entire series, like he was taking mid ranges and 3 pointers more than he ever would have. He couldn't drive, and they had a great defense for him, but teams have done that before, and he's just picked them apart. And his playmaking is always going to be there. He's always going to be really smart, but he's just not as athletic as he used to be. And it's sad to admit, but it happened. So I don't think that means he's going to be bad at all in upcoming years. I think he's still going to be great, but maybe there's going to be a next best player. And I don't know who that is yet, but I think it's coming.
Yeah. And you have to point out, again, it's pretty obvious that, I mean, for anybody, you're 36 years old, your skills are going to start, declining. That's just how it goes. That nobody's ever beaten Father Time. It's impossible. Um, but you also have to take into account that the Lakers and the Heat, two teams who, were in the finals last year and were both bounced in the first round. They had the shortest offseason in professional sports history. And that takes a toll on you.
Yeah.
And we saw it. I mean, the Heat were banged up all year. The Lakers were banged up all year. So I think this long offseason is going to help a lot. Again, I don't know if LeBron will ever return to the LeBron that we've watched for the last 15 years, but I think it'll help. I guess we'll get into the rest of the team later, but I think it definitely helps LeBron. But like you said, his reign as the best player by far in the NBA looks like it's gonna come to an end
Yeah.
sooner than later.
I think it's kind of up for grabs too. Like I think
Yeah,
that there's a few players that can do that, and I don't know, but I'm excited. It's bittersweet because my favorite player is not going to be the best player, but it'll be a change for the NBA, and I'm excited for that at least.
yeah,
Um,
and LeBron mentioned it after in his press conference uh, last night. The league is in good hands. Devin Booker just dropped 47 on the Lakers. Jason Tatum is doing his thing. There's so many young stars in the playoffs right now. Just to go through it, Donovan Mitchell, John Morant had a great showing in his first playoffs. Trae Young played really well. I mean,
Luka
there's
Doncic.
Luka Doncic. Yeah, I mean, there's just so many good young players that it, it's time for them to start, being the guys. And it sucks to say because we grew up with LeBron, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, Russell Westbrook. That was kind of our I don't want to say prime NBA fan years, but it was like as we were becoming NBA fans and like true NBA fans, those were the guys. And it's always tough to see like the guys you watched growing up kind of retire or fall off, whatever you want to say. But it looks like the time is now for that, unfortunately. Or fortunately, it depends how you look at it.
Yeah, for those who don't like LeBron, they just had to witness 18 years of greatness and like
Yeah.
14 of being the best player on the planet. So I guess they're happy. They've been waiting a long time for it. Uh, but I just want to talk about the other Lakers, I
Yeah.
guess, because we're talking about the future of the Lakers. I think you were telling me yesterday they have like 3 or 4 people on a
It's
contract for next
so
year.
on the books for next year is LeBron, Anthony Davis, Kyle Kuzma, KCP, and Mark Gasol. Montrezl Harrell has a player option. I doubt he picks it up, but he didn't really show much in the playoffs, so we'll see. But as of right now, those are the 5 guys on the books for the Lakers next year.
Yeah. So, I mean, we saw it this year. Like, there were a lot of injuries, but this team can definitely get a lot better and fit a lot better alongside each other. Um, really quickly, LeBron James and Anthony Davis, they are the centerpieces, obviously.
Yeah,
Anybody could tell you that.
nobody's going anywhere from those two. That's just
Yeah.
obvious.
Um, for this year, Anthony Davis got injured. That's a risk you're going to take with him. He's an amazing player, but he's been injury prone his entire career. And I don't think he was ever 100% in the playoffs.
No, he
Um,
definitely wasn't.
and neither was LeBron. So, I mean, you got to understand that. This team was banged up. Dennis Schroeder had COVID like 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. Like, he's not going to
Well,
be 100% either.
yeah, we've seen that be huge impact on players' games.
Yeah.
Like
So,
even when they're healthy, like it lingers basically.
yeah, with health last year, the Lakers got really lucky. They played some competition like the Heat, who were banged up. And this year they got really unlucky. So it just happens.
Right.
And it's not an excuse, but it's there. Like you got to understand it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, those two obviously staying. I think everyone else is tradable or signable. I don't know.
So what I think is this team was, in the first 2 months of the season when everyone was healthy, this team was far and away the best team in the NBA. I think they were what? I think they were 22-9 before I think AD got hurt first, and it just fell apart basically. So it was working, but like I said, like you said, injuries obviously they were there, and then it was just a long. They basically played 2 full seasons almost back to back. I mean, the bubble was like every player that was in the bubble will tell you that that was tiring, like exhausting. Nobody actually really enjoyed the bubble. So, to put that into perspective, how good they were and how much talent this team had if there were no injuries and with a full offseason, I think one of the best things this team can do is bring everybody back.
I think a lot of the core pieces were really good. Dennis Schroeder, I wish that we could see him healthy because he did not perform well. But I mean, like the man was not 100%, just like the top two players. Andre Drummond, I don't know what's going to happen there. I mean,
He
he's
might ask for too much money for the Lakers to bring him back, but there were reports that they're interested in it.
mhm.
I don't really know. We'll see. And Schroeder, after the game yesterday, said that he wanted to come back, and that I think he said like money doesn't matter or something. He said something like that, which is good sign for the Lakers, I think.
Yeah. A guy like Alex Caruso, I know he's memed a lot, but he's very solid for this team. And I think I would guess that he'd want to stay with the Lakers, but he could probably get more money somewhere else. So I
Yeah.
don't know. One I did want to talk to you about is Kyle Kuzma
Hmm.
because I don't know, like he just doesn't look good on this team.
Kyle Kuzma is the most confusing player in the NBA because he will go out there and he will either shoot 1 for 8 from three and have 5 points, or he'll go out there and drop 22 and 9, and it'll be like, wow, Kuzma, he's like one of our biggest role players. So he's so hard to gauge. And I think they've already committed way too much to him to like trade him. And I don't know if any team is willing to pick up that contract. He got paid $40 million. Like that's a lot of money for a guy who will probably just be a role player. And I mean the Lakers can do it because they have the money. So I think he ends up staying, and just I guess we just have to hope that he can, figure out some form of consistency. Because to be honest, I'd rather him average, you know, 10 to 13 points a game off the bench than either score 3 points or 20 a night. I'd rather have that consistency from him, especially on a team with two superstars. That's just what you need from role players is consistency.
Yeah, it's tough because he's 25 years old. When he was younger, I think 3 years ago, he averaged like 19 on the bad team. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's kind of the player he is. Like, if he's on a bad team, he's going to be one of the best players and going to score a lot. But on a contender, I don't know how good he's going to be. He brings energy, he gives effort. He doesn't ever like slack off or anything. He's going to give you rebounds. This year, he somehow improved a ton at rebounding. I guess he just kind of took that role. Um, but yeah, I don't know how well he works around the Lakers core. So they got to see what they're going to do. And I think if they do end up trading him, I don't know what the market would be for him because, like you said, like $10 million or whatever. I don't, someone's going to match that with a contract, but I don't think they're going to want to give up a great player for it. And then maybe like a pick, but like, what would the Lakers do with that?
Right. At this point,
So
picks don't do anything for the Lakers, especially when you have LeBron on your team, like at this stage in his career. Picks aren't
yeah,
really valuable anymore.
yeah. When the signing happened, I think it was good. And I don't know if it's a bad signing now, but it's just, it doesn't seem like the Lakers really need him as much as they're paying him for.
Hmm.
So it's interesting to see what will happen. I know that LeBron sometimes looks really frustrated with him, but he's also encouraged him and stuff. So I don't really know what that relationship is. I'm sure he likes the effort at least, but yeah, I'm interested to see what happens.
Yeah, and there's always going to be the narrative with big teams like the Lakers to, go get another star, get a big three, but that's just not realistic with where the Lakers are. Like I said, they have 5 players on the book for next year and no valuable picks anytime
Yeah,
soon. So they're not, people will make the edits and talk
Damian
about
Lillard to the
Damian Lillard,
Lakers.
but it's not going to happen. If he goes anywhere, that's a could be a topic for another episode, but he's going to go somewhere that can afford him, basically. Um, and the Lakers just aren't at that stage. So if I'm the Lakers, I think I keep Schroeder. I think he's important to this team when healthy. He played well against next to LeBron. I didn't really expect it. You didn't really expect it. We talked about it at the beginning of the season. It was kind of a weird match there, but it worked out well enough. There were glimpses there where showed Schroeder and LeBron can be on the floor at the same time. And then, the Lakers we saw needed at least one of them on the floor at all times to stay in it while at least LeBron was off the floor. So I think bringing back Schroeder is a key for the Lakers this offseason. Um, it's going to really come down to how much money Drummond wants. And if we're being honest, he didn't really help his case with the Lakers. I mean, I think he could have gotten more money if he stayed on the Cavs and just kept stat padding, if we're being honest. But because he didn't show much.
Yeah, I feel like he was kind of set up for failure because like he went to the place where all eyes are going to be on him,
Mm-hmm.
and he didn't play bad to what he like I don't think he himself played as bad as he could have. I don't know how to say this well, but like he played like Andre Drummond is supposed to play. Like he's not the player that a lot of people think he is. He's not going to give you 20 and 20 and help the team. He can give you 12 and 12 and help the team if he plays like 18 minutes and he's playing good defense. And some games he did that, but you saw how inconsistent he is, where other
Right.
games he gets played off the floor because he's so bad defensively and he just makes stupid mistakes. He misses dunks. He leaves assignments to try to get rebounds. And that's just kind of, I think, who he is. Like, I don't think he's trying to play like that, but I don't know. I think people are just seeing like what the player he is. He can give you stats, but I don't know how helpful that is. Like Hassan Whiteside could have put up 15 and 12 this year, but he didn't get playing time. And there's a reason for that. Like it's not helpful to the team. So he's a confusing player to me. I think another team could offer him a lot of money, not a lot of money, like 5-10 million a year
Yeah.
for a couple of years, because they could convince himself that they need a center, and maybe he would help. But I don't know if he's going to stay on the Lakers. I don't see them offering very much money. So yeah, I don't really know about that.
Mm-hmm. And then away from Schroeder and Drummond, who are kind of the big names, I guess you could call them in terms of Lakers free agents. I liked Wesley Matthews this year. I think he was a good shooter on that team. And like any LeBron team, you need to go out and get shooters. And I don't really know the free agent pool in terms of shooters this offseason, but I think Wesley Matthews coming back would be big. Ben McLemore didn't get a lot of playing time, but he was okay in his minutes. Um, so honestly, I think if they bring back Schroeder, find a big man somewhere, and then shooters. Honestly, that's just really the bottom line for this Lakers team.
Yeah, I think shooters, I mean, they've talked about they need shooters and they sign guys like Wesley Matthews and them. They are considered shooters, but like I'm talking about like a top tier shooter. Like I don't think Seth Curry is going to be easy to get, but a guy like that would be so helpful to this
Mm-hmm.
team. And I don't think that's realistic, but what I'm saying is like I would rather have one guy who shoots 43% from 3 than like four guys that shoot 36%. And in these playoffs, the entire Lakers team shot 29.9% from 3. That's
Yeah.
terrible. Like on a LeBron led team, he's going to be dishing out assists. He's going to be giving it to 3-point shooters. There were a lot of open looks that they missed. And I'll just go through some of these. LeBron shot 37.5% from 3. That's good for him, and that's solid for anyone.
But he was still taking too many threes, in my opinion, and that's
Oh,
part of
oh
him
yeah.
being getting old and injured and stuff like that.
Yeah. Anthony Davis shot 18%. He's not a 3-point shooter. Shooter shot 31% from 3. That's okay, not great. Kuzma 17%. Caruso 29. Wesley Matthews 28. KCP, the 3-point shooter, shot 21%. It's just everyone wasn't good. And
Yeah.
that's something they can all improve on. And I don't know if that's just unlucky that they shot bad, but there were a lot of open looks. The Suns defense was good, but they need to improve on that. And I don't know how that happens without getting some new people, because I don't know. They can't create their own shot and they're missing their open shots. So it's just kind of a recipe for disaster if that's on a LeBron team.
Yeah. Um, should be interesting. We have never seen uh, LeBron lose in the first round, and we'll see how he responds. He already said he's not playing for the Olympic team this summer, which
No
you
one
know
is.
expected. Nobody really. I mean, kind of sucks that not a lot of people do anymore, but he needs his rest, his recovery, as does Anthony Davis. Somebody needs to sit Anthony Davis down and figure out what the deal is. I don't know if he's just too big and too, his play style just doesn't match up with how big he is, which I guess could be part of it. But I really don't know. I'm not an expert in any of that stuff. So I don't think that's even something you can really figure out or change, but do something to try to get yourself more durable.
Your teammate is LeBron James, so
I'm sure he
do
has
whatever he does.
something. um, but yeah, it should be an interesting offseason for the Lakers. Do they go the run it back route, or do they're not going to blow it up? Do they, bring in a bunch of new faces? Should be interesting. Now to our second topic of the podcast, and that is the biggest surprises in the MLB this season. We've had, in the MLB, baseball's an interesting sport because really anything can happen. Just with the way the game is played, the way everything plays out. Honestly, anything can happen in baseball, except for the Orioles being a good team. Um, but the biggest surprises, we've got two teams each and two players each. I'm going to start off with one of my biggest surprises. And as a Dodgers fan, I've watched them a good amount this season. And really, it's just been weird, cool, maybe to see. The Giants are good. They're 35-21, and they're first place in the NL West. Again, that NL West is Giants, Padres, Dodgers are all separated by I think it's like 2 games right now. So again, that could jump flip really at any point. But the point is, the Giants are competing in a division where everybody predicted Padres, Dodgers, huge gap, everybody else. So I mean, they're ninth in the ML, they're top 10 in the MLB in team OPS of 732. They're third in the MLB in home runs, and their pitching, they've had really good pitching this year. They're sixth in the MLB in ERA and fifth in the MLB in WHIP. So they've really got everything going for them. And I'm going to preface it by saying they're 23rd in strength of schedule. So take that as you will. But they're competing against very good teams, and I don't think anybody expected this from the Giants.
Yeah, I'm glad to see that it's not just Padres Dodgers because the Giants were great and then they sucked and now they're hopefully good again. And then the other two teams that I won't even mention are just bad. So
They're literally already 15 games behind the rest of the division.
no. But team I wanted to talk about was the Cubs. I got a love-hate relationship with the Cubs because I like them, but obviously they did something to the Indians in 2016 I don't want to talk about. But they've been really good. And Brent predicted this when he came on that the Cubs would be good, but I don't think a lot of people thought they would be as good as they are right now. They're the top of their division at 32-24. The only team in that division who has a plus run differential. So I think that's really telling. St. Louis is behind them a game and a half, but their run differential is minus 12. So it's been a pretty big jump. And also they've been really good as of late. They started off kind of slow and then they've just picked it up. They got a lot of players playing really well. I'm going to talk about Chris Bryant a little bit later. But a lot of consistency on this team. Their average is top 10 in the league and their pitching is top 10 in the league. They're just really well-rounded. And I mean, we expected some of the players to be really good, but it just seems like a lot is going right with this team and it looks like it can happen consistently. So that's why I really like them. It doesn't seem like this is a fluke. They're playing really well, and I don't think the competition that they've been playing has been bad. And also considering that everybody else in their division has a negative run differential. I think that kind of shows that like they could actually lead this division the whole way. Obviously, it can change. I think St. Louis is really talented as well, um, but I've liked what I'm seeing a lot from them. They don't really have a lot of holes in any of their positions, and they've been fun to watch. Pitching has been really good for them.
Yeah, and Javi Baez has picked it up after kind of a slow start, but they just swept the Padres, which I mean, thank you, Cubs. But they're winning against good teams. Um, and Chris Bryant, I know you said you were going to talk about him. He's looking like the MVP Chris Bryant we got a couple of years ago.
Yeah, he's having a better season so far.
Yeah,
Patrick
it's
Wisdom, shout out to Patrick Wisdom. I didn't know who this man was. He's been really good.
oh yeah, he's the new guy. I think
Yeah,
is he a rookie? He might be a rookie. Um, but yeah,
I
that
don't know.
Cubs team is full of guys that I feel like we all knew could break out, but nobody really predicted it. And
Yeah, and
and they're doing it.
their good players are just stepping up too. Like Anthony Rizzo, Chris Bryant are like people like them because they're good, but like they're playing some of the best years that they've ever had. Wilson Contreras is playing well. He's their catcher. Javier Baez is playing well. Like, yeah. And they're pitching like everyone has been good. They don't have a lot of standout pitchers, but everybody's just been solid for them.
Yeah,
Their relief pitching too.
Kyle Hendricks throws only changeups, and he's just carving teams.
Yeah. So yeah, I like them because I think they can keep this up, and I don't think it's a fluke. So yeah,
Yeah,
they've been fun to watch.
for sure. And my second team, my biggest surprise, it's another team that's doing a lot better than a lot of people thought they would. And that's the Boston Red Sox. As of right now, they are 33 and 23, firmly in second place in one of the strongest divisions in baseball, if not the strongest in the AL East. Um, they're right between the Rays and the Yankees as of right now, too, but also the Blue Jays are above 500 in that division. Um, just in terms of players, Xander Bogaerts and JD Martinez are playing out of their minds right now. Like they're both probably top five, top 10 hitters this year so far. And to have two guys like that, let alone one on a team that wasn't expected to do much, is ridiculous. And most of their success has come on offense. They're third in MLB in team OPS with 755, and they're ninth in home runs. So this team is raking. And, at the beginning of the season, after they had a pretty down year last year after Mookie Betts got traded, everyone was kind of like, oh, Betts is gone, and so are the Red Sox. But they've come out here with a swagger. They're exciting. They're a young team too. Like they've got guys. Verdugo was the main guy in the Betts trade, and he's been great for them in terms of energy. I remember him as a Dodger fan. He always brought the energy. So I think he's doing the same with the Red Sox. And then to have two all-star bats in the middle of your lineup in Bogarts and JD, that's huge for that team.
Yeah. I mean, those guys and Rafael Devers, you just
Yeah,
mentioned, is
Devers.
like top three in hits in the league. It's just a lot of like the pitching has not been great. It hasn't been terrible, but it hasn't been great. But this offense has just been really, really good. Xander Bogarts, I think, has probably been pretty underrated for a few years.
Yeah.
I don't think he's the best shortstop, but he's got a case for it right now.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that just shows how good he's been.
Especially
Um,
considering our top two shortstops are hurt
oh
and
God,
terrible. So
yeah. Um, Frankie, I don't know what you're doing. Um, but yeah, the offense has just been really good. A lot of different players stepping up. JD Martinez was like one of the best hitters in the league, if not the best, for a couple years. And then he kind of just fell off, but it looks like he's found it again. He's hitting home runs, he's getting hits. His average is great. If you got a guy DHing like that, you're going to have a lot of offense on your team. I don't care who else is there. Um, and yeah, they just have been fun to watch because of how good offensively they are. And it's kind of just not a well-rounded team, but their offense has stepped up so much that it doesn't really matter.
hmm and to be third in the league in OPS, like I think OPS is it's just my opinion is that OPS is the most telling or most important stat for a hitting team. I think batting average is outdated and overrated at this point. Um, but OPS just shows, I think, the full scope of an offense because it shows that you're getting on base and you're, driving them in terms of slugging percentage. And any team that's going to be top three, top five is going to have a shot to make a run to the playoffs.
Mm-hmm. Moving on to my second team, we've had three teams that we have thought that we didn't think were going to be as good as they are, and they've showed us that they've been a lot better. I'm going to go with one that's been a lot worse than I thought they would be, and that is the Minnesota Twins. They have a 22-34 record. That's like bottom 5 in the league. I didn't think that they were going to be better than the White Sox, but I thought they were going to be second in the division when it was all said and done. And I'm an Indians fan, so like I wouldn't want to admit that. But their offense has been actually good, but their pitching has been so bad that they are like losing so much. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
A guy like Byron Buxton, who had like the greatest month in the league so far this year, he got injured. So I mean, we got to say that was their best player so far this year. But like, it's just gross how bad their pitching has been. Their relief pitching has been terrible. Their starting pitching has not been good. Kenta Maeda has not been very good this year. He's got a 5.27 ERA. He was a great pitcher last year. Matt Shoemaker is starting for them with a ERA of 6. They can't find anybody better than that. It's just bad. Like, that they haven't played insanely good competition either, and they just can't win. They're getting blown out, and Astudillo is pitching, and then they're just getting home runs hit off of them 3-0, and they're getting angry. It's just not good.
The Twins are so interesting because for the last, I don't really, 2, maybe 3 years, they've just outslugged teams and they've beat teams with their offense. They set the record for most home runs in a season 2 years ago. Um, and they've just been the team that rakes, and they still are, but they're just losing games this year. And that's just, I don't, maybe their pitchers are the only ones not cheating, but I mean, they're just, I don't really, it's crazy because that just truly shows how important pitching is in the MLB if you want to be remotely good. Because
Yeah.
you can score 6 runs, which is above average in an MLB game. But if you have bad pitching, you're going to lose that game a lot of the time.
Yeah. They have the 10th highest average for a team, batting average for a team, and the 4th most home runs, but the 26th worst or 26th best pitching. So ERA. So it doesn't matter, I guess, if it's that bad. Like you
Mm-hmm.
just said, they've just been outslugging opponents, and I guess this year it just hasn't happened. Um, which, I mean, I don't really know how we could have seen that coming because it's just happened the last few years, and nothing has really shown like it was going to slow down. And the offense hasn't been as good, but it hasn't been bad at all. So it's just weird. I could see this changing because it's still early on in the season, but they've just been consistently bad, and it's been surprising to me at least.
Yeah, I think it's surprising to really everybody. I think we both had the Twins having a wild card spot this season.
Yeah.
So we'll see what ends up happening. Again, a team with an offense like that can go on runs, but they're going to need pitching help. So I don't know what they need to do, go out and get somebody or just get better. But we'll see. So those are our teams, the biggest surprises in terms of teams. Going on to individual players. My first one, uh, I knew I was going to go with the Cincinnati Red, but I just didn't know if it was going to be Nicholas Castellanos or Jesse Winker. And I decided to go with Jesse Winker because Castellanos has been good in the past, and you can expect someone to be good if they've been good in the past. That's what a line. But Jesse Winker really came out of nowhere. Like, he's been a name in the MLB, but this season he's hitting 348 with an on base percentage of 408. He's got an OPS over 1,000. He's top 3 in the MLB in batting average, OPS, and slugging percentage. He's got 14 home runs. His season career high is 16, and he's got 31 RBIs, and his career high is 43. His last 2 seasons, he hit 269 and 255, and it's just the Jesse Winker show all of a sudden in Cincinnati.
Yeah, against righties, he absolutely destroys pitching. Um, kind of dumb, but in MLB the show, he's just scary. So I mean, yeah, he's been so good. Him and Castellanos are like 1 and 2 in the league in average, something like that.
And that team is still 25 and
Yeah,
29.
the team still sucks. So yeah, it's sad. But he's been so good. Like, I'm glad you highlighted him. I agree. Castellanos has been good. Like even on the Tigers, he was good. Like it's been a while, so I'm glad Jesse Winker's getting some praise. But yeah, I'm gonna move on to my next guy. I got Christopher Bryant. I know I talked that I said I was gonna talk about him later. He had his MVP season. What was that? 2016.
16, 17, one of those.
Yeah. So that year that he won the World Series. Um, but since then, he's had one All-Star appearance, but he hasn't been the same Chris Bryant we have seen. And this year, about a third of the way through the year, he's having a statistically better season than he did in his MVP season. He's batting 316, 395 on base percentage, 991 OPS, and the OPS plus stat, which basically takes everything into account, he's leading the league in. So he's not really leading the league in any specific category, but because he's been so good at everything, he's leading the league in OPS plus, and I think that shows how good he has been. He's going to play good defense. He's on the best team in their division in the Cubs. I just talked about it. He's leading that team. And it's just been nice to see that he's sort of like coming back from they were down years, they weren't bad years, but even like last year he batted 206, which is just not good. And we knew Chris Bryant had this in him, but we haven't seen it in like 5 years, 4 years. So I'm really happy to see it. He's always been fun to watch, and it's crazy that he's been better than his MVP season so far.
Yeah. Um, and it's interesting you bring up OPS plus because if you don't know, that's basically OPS, but then it takes into account what stadium you're playing at and like what division, what league you play in, so AL or NL. And Wrigley Field is traditionally a hitter's park, just it always has been. And you know, there's always the talk, oh, Cubs players play in Wrigley, so they're gonna rake. But the fact that he's leading an OPS plus just shows that that's not that big of a factor. He's just raking, like, and it's great to see because he came in, was rookie of the year, then was MVP, and everyone was like, whoa, this is the guy. Like he's gonna be the guy for the next 10, 15 years. And then he really wasn't. And it was always everyone was kind of confused almost because it was like what happened. He wasn't ever too injured. It was just kind of almost like he lost it. And it's great to see him pick it back up. And it should be interesting to see if this continues because he should be in the prime of his career right now. There were talks of being a season of trading him, and I don't think the Cubs are really talking about that right now. So yeah, I mean it's good for Chris Bryant, and it's good to see that he's kind of back on his horse um, after struggling after such a good start to his career. Um, so my next guy, last guy, I went in the direction of they've been bad, surprisingly. And I'm gonna go with a guy near and dear to your heart. This offseason signed one of the biggest contracts in MLB history, and since then has done absolutely nothing
Oh
for a
no, I
team with
didn't.
very high expectations, and that's Francisco Lindor. Um, Before the season, by us as well, was widely regarded as a top three shortstop in the league. Right now, playing like he's not even top 25. Um, he's hitting 211 with an on base percentage of 304, an OPS of 621. Ladies and gentlemen, that is not good. He has 4 home runs and 12 RBIs through the first 2 months of the season. And Mets fans are not happy, like at all. And you're paying this guy the most you've ever paid anybody in your franchise history. And he is just not the guy you signed up for at all.
Yeah, I mean this sucks. I didn't know you were going to talk about him, but I have a lot to say, so I won't say a lot, but I can. Um, it's really sad. That's the bottom line. Is it's really sad. He's been my favorite player. He's not anymore because he's on the Mets, but I don't blame him for it. Uh, and the last 2 seasons, he just hasn't been good. Like, it's sad to say, but he
Mhm.
hasn't. And his defense, he can be a Gold Glover still. Like, he's playing great defense. That's always going to be there. But his hitting has just been so bad, like terrible. If you're paying this guy more than Jacob DeGrom, and he's giving you what he's giving you, and Jacob DeGrom has almost been a better hitter this year, that's
He
really
has.
sad.
He absolutely has.
Um, and I don't know if it's going to stay the same. I don't think it's going to be as bad as it is right now, but it's really scary if you just paid him that much money for so many years and this is what he's giving you. And I mean, it's not like he's like not putting in the work or anything. So it sucks to see him getting booed. Like that's just
Yeah.
New York. Um, but yeah, he's just been bad. Like I understand their frustration because they traded for him. They didn't give up a lot, but they paid him a ton of money. Um, he's like not hitting home runs. Watching him for like 6 years, he hit home runs. Like he's one of the power shortstops. He's hit for average before. He's hit over 300 a couple seasons, or at least close to it. Um, and then his defense has always been there, and it's just his defense is there, but his offense just I don't know what has happened in the last 2 seasons, but it's just sucked. It's really confusing to me.
Yeah, as of right now, and I don't think the Indians have a guy in that trade who's made the major leagues. Maybe they have. I really haven't paid much attention. But as of right now, the Indians have won that trade because Francisco Lindor has been detrimental to the Mets this season, and Carlos Carrasco is on the 60-day IL. So to say that the Indians won that trade without having really anything in return, they just haven't been hurt by it, is
Yeah,
crazy. Um, and the Mets are in first place in their division, a very surprisingly bad division so far.
yeah, that's weird.
Um, and the Braves are starting to pick it up, but they started out one of the worst teams in the MLB. Um, but uh, Francisco Lindor was tied to the majority of the Mets' early struggles, and that's just not what anyone really expected.
Yeah, it's sad. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah.
But I'll move on to my last guy. We can end on a more upbeat guy or upbeat topic, I guess. Um, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Shout out to Vladimir Guerrero Jr. In his first two
Uh,
seasons in the league, he batted 270. Not bad, but it just wasn't what we were expecting. We put too high expectations on him, but it wasn't
right.
what we were expecting from a guy who was like the number one prospect. This season, he is leading the league, tied in home runs. He's leading the league in batting average, on base percentage, slugging, OPS plus, and total bases and intentional walks. That's like every offensive category. Like he's just been so good. It's like Juan Soto was last year. He's
hmm
just been amazing. And his home and away splits are insane. He's not even playing in Toronto. They're playing in like Florida in like a minor league stadium or something.
Which is still weird to me. I don't like
Yeah,
it.
it's really weird. But he's batting like 430 at home. Like it's ridiculous. And his OPS plus is 204. Chris Bryant led the National League with like 170. He's at 204. The average is 100. He is more than twice as good as the average player because OPS plus is 100 for the average player.
Yeah.
That's insane. Like that is ridiculous. Um, the man is hitting the ball farther than I've seen like anybody this year. He's getting on base. He's hitting for average. He's leading the league in everything. Like he could be triple crown winner this year. Um, and early pick for MVP would be him. I know that can change, but he's just been so good at 22 years old. It's awesome.
Yeah. It's so satisfying and so nice when a guy lives up to the hype, when the hype is so huge. Like, I guess the comparison would be like Zion has lived up to his hype, and Vlad is living up to his hype as we speak. Like, he came in and it was like, all right, your dad's a Hall of Famer and you're the number one prospect in the MLB. You better come in and hit 40 home runs.
Mhm.
And he didn't do that his first 2 years, but he wasn't bad. And I think that's the narrative some people are missing is they're like, oh my God, this is the biggest breakout player. And don't get me wrong, he's made a huge jump, but he was not a bad player before this season. It was always there. And
Yeah.
I didn't even expect this from Vlad. I expected him to be like, yeah, like a 40, 45 home run guy, but I didn't expect him to lead the league in on base percentage and batting average. Like, no, I don't think many people expected that. And he's just shown that he
Mhm.
is a all around good hitter. He doesn't just hit home runs, which was kind of his thing. He had that home run derby last year. Him and Jock Peterson just was the greatest showing ever. But he's shown that he is one of the best, if not probably the best right now, all around hitter in the MLB this season.
Yeah. The league is in really good hands for young players. Some of the young players have been the best in the league so far. So it's exciting. And I'm really impressed. The man came into the league when he was 20 years old and he was an above average hitter. At 21, he was an above average hitter. And at 22, he's the best hitter in the league so far this year.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, I think the most impressive part, like you just talked about, is like he was going to hit home runs, but he's walking. Like
Right.
that doesn't come early for a lot of players. He's getting on base, he's hitting for average, and he's 22. Like he can get so much better. Your prime isn't until like 8 years from now. Um, so yeah, it's awesome. I'm really happy for him.
Yeah. And that Blue Jays team also still has like two or three top 25 prospects just waiting. So that team is gonna be good in the next couple of years.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, that's all we got for today. We talked about the Lakers and what they should do going forward in this offseason, in this pretty important offseason for that team. And then we gave our biggest surprises in the MLB this season. We gave some surprising teams and some surprising players. Again, you can follow us on all of our social medias. They will be linked down below. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, sorry, they're probably not. You can check us out, World Sports Podcast, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. And yeah, thank you so much for listening or watching, whatever you really decided to do. And my name is Diego Sandoval. And for my co host, Logan Ring, we are signing off.
Signing off.